Good Erev Yontif to all our friends as we will be celebrating Shavuos in our homes, and we'll be listening to Yizkor shortly. I'd like to ask a simple question about the prayers that we're going to have throughout Yontif. In reference to the holiday, we are going to say that Shavuos is Zman Matan Torasenu. It is the time of the gift of the Torah. Now, if you know historically, Hashem intended on giving the Torah on the 6th day of the month of Sivan, which is this coming tonight and tomorrow. The Talmud has a discussion about this and says that actually things were pushed off a day by Moshe, and the Torah was not given till the following day, which happened to be a Shabbos, as it coincides with this year. And it really was on Shabbos, the 7th day of Sivan, that God gave us the Torah. He actually, the Sinai revelation was on a Shabbos, was on the 7th day of Sivan. And in Israel, clearly, they're only celebrating one day, and that's tonight and tomorrow. And in Canada and the rest of the world, we celebrate 2 days, but the main day is the first day, which is the 6th of Sivan. So the question is, it seems that we're celebrating the entire holiday on the wrong day. We received the Torah on the 7th day of Sivan. That was the Sinai revelation. And we're staying up tonight and saying the 10 Commandments and all that a day ahead of it. And we say it's Zman Matan Torah. Now, how do we understand that? So I'd like to explain, in light of the fact that we're all going to be involved in a Siyum Tanakh, or at least Navi, as much as we can do, to share with you some books from the scriptures. And we know we're going to read the book of Rus on the 2nd day of Shavuos. And one of the major themes in Tanakh is how Hashem gives life, brings death, rewards and punishes individuals according to their deeds. However, if we look in the book of Rus, which I can't go through in detail now, but the events in the story revolve around the kindness of human beings and how their good deeds brought about a good ending for the individuals in the story. And the closest the book comes to highlighting Hashem's divine providence is the fact that Rus came to collect grain in Boaz's field exactly when Boaz was surveying his fields, and the pasuk says, and it was her chance to come to Boaz's field. That's about it. But we all have a chance moments like that. So what then is the main lesson from the book of Rus? So the truth is, to understand this, we have to compare and contrast the events in the book of Rus with those of the book of Job, the book of Eov. And many scholars have pointed out a number of similarities between the events in Naomi's life, the mother-in-law of Rus, and the events in Job's life. Let's quickly run through them. The first is both of them lost all of their wealth and family and were forced to start all over again. Second, they both mourned the bitterness of their lot in their context of their recognition of divine providence and used very similar language. Eov said, and God has embittered my soul. And Naomi said, God has dealt very bitterly with me. The third is, after the misfortunes that fell to both of them, their respective friends looked at them in shock. The pasuk in Job says, and they lifted up their eyes from a distance, and they did not recognize him, and they lifted up their voices and cried. Similarly, with regards to Naomi's old friends in Beis Lechem, when she returns impoverished, the text says the whole city was astonished regarding them, and the women said, is this Naomi? Fourth similarity, both Eov and Naomi experienced a happy ending, where both of them rebuild new lives, and Eov seeing 4 generations of descendants, and Naomi also living to see 4 generations of descendants, including the father of the ultimate redeemer, David HaMelech. Finally, in Eov it says that Eov had twice 7 sons as a repayment, as it were. And Naomi's friends said regarding Rus that Rus, is better for you than 7 sons. So there's a general rule. Whenever we see that 2 entities are very similar, It means that we must look very deeply to discern the deeper distinction between them. And therefore, we have to examine the stories more closely to discover the central point which differentiates Naomi in the book of Ruth from Eov in his book. And if we really look at it deeply, the scholars say that the two books could not be more opposite. The entire book of Eov addresses the theological problem raised by the suffering of the righteous and the prosperity of the wicked. It's a theological dialogue between Eov and his friends. And outside the first two and last few chapters, there's virtually no action. No one does anything in Sefer Eov to rectify Eov's situation. It's just a philosophical discussion back and forth between Eov and his friends, back and forth. The entire story, it's not much of a story of Eov, consists of a discussion about the problem presented by Eov's situation. And even at the end, Eov never learns of the debate. He never found out about the debate between Hashem and Satan in the beginning of the chapter, at the beginning of the book, that it was all to test him. Nor does he learn of any interpretation which could help him understand everything that happened to him. Rather, Hashem tells him near the end, amidst this storm of his theological debates, in that great whirlwind of a storm, he says, strengthen yourself like a man, and I'll ask you, and you will tell me, where were you when I founded the earth? That's the end. That's the end of the story from the theological point. And Eov only experiences his redemption when he finally admits to man's inability to understand God's ways. As the pasuk then says later on, Eov says, therefore I spoke but did not understand. They are hidden from me and I did not know. Then the salvation came. Just like he never understood the reason for his suffering, he never understood why he was redeemed at the end. As we say in the High Holidays prayers, it says, man comes from the dust and will return to the dust. And we cannot expect to comprehend God's ways. So based on the book of Eov, we learn that man cannot demand to understand the way Hashem conducts the world. As the prophet Yeshaya says, whoever's going to have the good fortune of reading Yeshaya chapter 41, says Hashem calls the generations from the beginning. And in chapter 46, Yeshaya says, he tells the end from the beginning. God knows all his plans, but before it started. But man was not around when God created the world, and man cannot hope to understand everything that happens. Indeed, even one's good or bad deeds will not guarantee good or bad fortune in his life on planet Earth. But rather, the bottom line is, as King David says in Tehillim, chapter 8, what is man that you should remember him? And son of man, that you should be mindful of him. And based on the book of Eov, it seems that everything's in Hashem's hands, and man has no determinative role in his own fate. And that really is the book of Eov. The book of Ruth that we will read on Shabbos, however, is exactly the opposite. People take their lives into their own hands, rebuild after destruction, and ultimately the kind deeds of the kind people in the story lead not only to their own redemption, but to the establishment of the kingdom of the father of the final redeemer, David HaMelech. Let's have a few examples. Ruth refused to abandon Naomi when she could have stayed back at home in Moab and lived as a princess. But no, she comes back to live in poverty. Naomi takes care of Ruth when they come back with the convert. She's guiding her. Boaz, the relative, the judge of the Jewish people, who didn't have to necessarily worry about them, but he took care of Ruth as well. The whole book is filled with stories of people who, with their own actions, achieve things, rectify the past, build the future, and establish the beginning of the ultimate monarchy and the final redemption. As King David says in Tehillim chapter 89, Olam chesed yiboneh. The world is built through kindness. In fact, just two psukim after that verse, which stated, what is man that you should remember him? David HaMelech continues, you give man dominion over the work of your hands, and you have placed everything beneath his feet. And therefore, this explains that man's kindness can determine the outcome of the way Hashem conducts the world. The kindness of Rus, Naomi, and Boaz, and others in the story screams out as the Medrash Sifri in Sefer Dvarim at the end of Kisavo says, "We have done what you have decreed that we do. Now fulfill your promise to us." And in response, Hashem gave Rus a son who'd one day become the grandfather of David HaMelech. And therefore, the message of the book of Rus is that if a person works and lives a righteous life, he can rebuild his own life and bring about the redemption. When we received the Torah, we said, but right before, a few days before, Nasa v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. The book of Rus corresponds to the idea of Nasa, we will do. While the book of Eov, in which the individuals simply try to understand the world, corresponds to the idea of Nishman, we will listen. Indeed, we see that Hashem has two different ways of conducting the world. On the one hand, according to the Eov method, he determines the end at the beginning, and all man can do is try to make peace with Hashem's mysterious plan. On the other hand, he conducts the world using the Rus method, which he gives mankind tremendous power to influence the world. As the Medrash in Rus Rabbah says in the name of Rabbi Zera, this book teaches neither impurity or purity, nor does it teach either permission or prohibition. Why was it written? The answer is to teach you the great reward for those who do kindness. So therefore, it comes out like this. The first day of Shavuos, in which we read the Torah portion recounting the giving of the Torah at Sinai, corresponds to the fact that Hashem held the mountain over their heads. Hashem had a plan, and giving us the Torah was part of the plan, and all we could do was go along for the ride. The mountain was overhead. But the second day of Shavuos, the day we keep outside of Eretz Yisrael, because of a rabbinic human enactment, corresponds to our role in the actively accepting Torah. That's why we read Rus on the second day, the book which teaches us how to take our lives into our hands and rectify the world through our actions on the second day of Shavuos. Rus teaches us about the other approach, that we have to act as if everything is up to us and do our part. This then explains the answer to the question I began with. When did God actually give us the Torah? Well, the truth of the matter is Hashem told Moshe on the second day, on the third day, he says, prepare yourself today and the next 2 days, for I will give you the Torah on the third day. Which means prepare yourself. Today is the third day, the fourth day, the fifth. I'm coming on the sixth. I'm coming on Friday. Moshe already starts to be a commentary on God's words. It says, well, today has to be like the other 2 days, and the other 2 days are complete. Today's not complete, so I'm going to add an extra day of preparation. And he says, Hashem, you know what? I want to have 3.5 days, so to speak, and we'd prefer to have the Torah on Shabbos. Now think about this. Imagine that you are going to have an incredibly important meeting with someone who's all-powerful, who can make a multi-billion-dollar deal with you, and you need him desperately. And he says, the only time I can fit you in is Friday morning. And I can do a deal with you that you'll make millions. And you say, it doesn't work for me. I prefer Saturday morning. The guy will say, listen, take it or leave it. It's my business. Can you imagine? Hashem says to Moshe, I'm going to come down on the mountain on Friday and I'm going to give you the Torah. I'm the boss. He eventually holds the mountain over our heads. I've decided from before the world was created that you're destined to receive the Torah. You have to listen to what my plans are. Accept the Torah completely. Moshe says, I understand Hashem, but I don't think we're yet ready for it. We do need 1 more day. And Moshe, so to speak, takes things in his own hands and say, God, is this Torah going to only be that you just call all the shots? You don't leave anything to us to try to to be partners in this achievement of spreading Torah to the world? So Hashem is the humble one here. Says, okay, I'll give you another day to say, I do run the world and I do call the shots, and a lot of things I do you can't understand. But if you really try hard and you're sincere, I'm willing to move things around a little bit, because we are partners in this. So the real question is that there's two terms. There's the term called Kabbalat HaTorah, Kabbalah HaTorah, receiving the Torah. And then there's the concept of Matan Torah, the gift of the Torah. It's two totally different things, or rather two sides of the same coin. Kabbalah HaTorah is Hashem put the mountain over our head. You've got to take it. You have no choice. The 10 commandments were given after the first 2 commandments. Each time we died, Hashem had to bring us back to life. We were scared. We were frightened. And we just listen to what you say. Nishma, we're going to hear. We heard it all. That was on the 7th. That was Kabbalah HaTorah. We received it. But Hashem wants us to know, and the real celebration is not on that day. That we can't celebrate the fact that God calls the shots and we don't understand anything. What we have to do is we have to say that the real celebration was on day 6, when God's original plan was to give and to be thunder and lightning. And nothing happened because man entreated God to say it's not good for us yet. That's when it was Matan Torah. We got the gift of the Torah, that we can take things into our hands with this Torah, and Hashem will agree to it. So the greatest gift is when Hashem says, I have this Torah that you got to listen to. But I gift it to you and I trust you that you will make the right decisions on the ground. It doesn't take away from the infinite genius of the Torah and the infinite instructions for living. But I want the Torah to be lived in this world with a practical and sensible application, and that's the gift of the Torah. That's the Matan Torah. And therefore, that's why we read Rus on Shavuos. There's one day of Kabbalah HaTorah, thunder and lightning, accept my word, although you don't understand. And then there's Rus, which says, as much as we can't understand, we try our best, and Hashem will reciprocate in kind. So now we've been accepting God's will without understanding a lot of things. As I said on Sunday, with all the science and all the opinions by the experts in the world, yes to open, not to open, how to open, when to reopen, all these things. The one thing we know for sure is that we really don't know. It's Eov. We don't really understand why these things are happening. We don't exactly know how to stop it. We don't really understand everything that Hashem wants us to do and why all this came. And we live in an age where knowledge is paramount, because everything we decide, even in the secular world, is all based on knowledge. And yet it seems that the words of the Talmud that say, Lemad leshoncha, train your tongue, lomar eineni yodea, to say, I don't know. It's a good thing to train your tongue to say. Rashi, the premier commentary on the Torah and the Talmud, often, when he's making a commentary, he says, eineni yodea, I don't understand what this pasuk is teaching us, what this Gemara is teaching us. And the question is, Rashi, if you don't understand what the commentary is, just be quiet, don't say anything. But the point is, he's trying to teach us that even someone as great as Rashi can say, I do not know. And as much as we find that disempowering to not know how to deal with a situation, but being in a state of not knowing creates humility. And humility is very fertile a place, very fertile ground for spirituality to grow and thrive. Humility is the place from where we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's interesting, Elie Wiesel, who was given a Nobel Prize and so to speak, is the icon in the secular world, like the prophet of the Holocaust. And what his words are said in the secular world are sacred. And after he received the prize, and he's written so many books on this, and they said, Mr. Wiesel, tell us the truth. What was the reason for the Holocaust? Why did it come? And he answered, to tell you the truth, I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. And yet he honestly did not know. And there are many Jews who did not know why the Holocaust happened, Eov experience. And yet we're able to have a Rus experience and say, but still the world is built on kindness. And as much as we don't know, we continue to do kindness. And we do the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we're coming up to Shavuos. And it's a holiday where we're experiencing the Eov certainly experience. So many of our fellow Jews have died. So many horrific situations, scary situations. So many of us want to be back in Shul. So many of us want to still hug our grandchildren, which we haven't hugged in 2 months already. We're going through another Yontif without all our family. And some of us are going through Yontif all alone. And we could take out the book of Eov now. But instead, Hashem wants us to take out the book of Rus. We have to do what we can do under these circumstances and keep ourselves strong and rebuild. It's not the kind of Shavuos we planned on having a year ago. It's not a Shavuos where we're going to be in Shul learning all night, reading from the Torah and hearing Mordechai read the Aseret Dibros early in the morning. It's not going to be a ladies' amazing Kiddush to hear the Rebbitzin speak in the morning. And then to have these ice cream parties for the kids. And then the next day they go to Yizkor. Won't have any of that. And the year of approach is God knows what he's doing. Nishma, we hear you, Hashem, loud and clear. And we don't question. But we read Rus on the second day, but there is still Nasa. We can't just sit back and theorize and philosophize. It's time for Nasa to do. And Baruch Hashem, I'm so proud of the entire congregation that although we will all be in our homes, we've taken on such a hush of a project to collectively be biyachad, be together. We all, so many, over 50 people, close to 60 people in the shul with their spouses, men and women and children, the little children, will all be studying Torah, the Navi, to hear the messages of stories like Eov and stories like Rus, together as one cohesive unit, as the Jews sat at Mount Sinai, maybe physically as one, but they certainly were spiritually as one. We may not be physically as one, but we are spiritually as one. We'll be learning tonight at 2:00 in the morning, your psukim in Yeshai and someone else's psukim in Shoftim. And then we'll have women coming during the Yontif and reading Perek Shira and recognize how the whole world sings praises to Hashem. This is our Nasa. This is our Rus. This is our book of Rus. And we can only assume that as the book of Rus ended, although immediately Mashiach did not come, immediately David HaMelech did not come, but it was such a critical step in bringing it. So I want to thank all the sponsors, so many sponsors that made us be financially solvent for all the expenses that this Yontiv incurred. When you're eating a little bit of chocolate from the boxes, you could think of Arthur Lampert, who's sponsoring for a yard site. It's all written in the bulletin. You can think of Robert Volson, who sponsored for us. If you're one of the women and you're reading a Perek Shira and you're eating some chocolate roses, you could think of Ilana Siegel for her father's yard site. You can think of Esther Greenbaum, Judy Greenfield, Susan Gatan, the Hershenfield family who sponsored all this. Those of you who now appreciate what Perek Shir is about, because you heard the Rebbitzins class, which was sponsored by the Sermon, Pillimer, and Fear families, all free sites. Please look in the bulletin. And finally, the books that you're enjoying. There were so many people sponsoring $50, $100, $200, etc. And last but not least, the Levin family, Dr. Martin and Serena Levin, in memory of Martin's grandparents, Serena's parents, to make sure we have the books to learn. This was really a communal effort. And that is on top of all the chesed that we've done for each other. And to try to be as COVID-19 safe as possible, people delivering all the books and making sure we're all safe. And we're all ready to go to enjoy the Yontif physically alone, but emotionally together. This is the best Hashem we can do. To say, Nase v'nishma. We all are going to say, sometime over this Yontif, Nase v'nishma. Hashem nishma, we hear you. We hear you. You're putting us in a position we have not wanted. And yet, we hear it and we understand you still want us to be home. You don't want us yet in the shul. I hear you. And you understand better than us. But don't deny us, Hashem, the nasa of what we can do, halachically permitted. And not to recklessly say, you know what, I got to do what I want to do. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. I have to be with my friends. I know we have to be with friends, but the doctor's saying it's not yet time. So Nishma, we're hearing you, but we're still nasa. We're doing the most that we can under these circumstances. And Rabbi Isai, when you do that with Simcha, and I'll talk about that more at the learning right before Yom Tov, that's what Hashem wants to see. We are at such a cusp of bringing David HaMelech's descendant into the world. Let's stay happy. And how do you get happy? As David himself said, without the Torah, your Torah, Hashem, that is my delight, I'd be lost in my impoverished state. And Rabbi said, let's just throw ourselves into the Navi and hear the words of the Navi. And we know we're part of Jewish history, a chapter that has never been written before, and we're all part of it. And then to sing Shira and to sing praises to Hashem, and we're part of the whole world that sings praises to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then you could read a book about a tzaddikas, Esther Jungreis, who dedicated her life to say, Hineni, here I am. She was a real NASA doer, child survivor of the Holocaust, NASA v'nishma. That's the message for the entire shul. And just let me please, for another few minutes, the message before Yizkor, with a story. At the end of the life of the Rebbe Reb Elimelech, he told you many stories about the Rebbe Reb Elimelech from Luzhinsk. He had no strength and hardly ate anything. And everyone begged him to eat, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. And one day his son, Reb Lazer, a tzaddik in his own right, begged his father to eat, arguing that he was obligated, according to halacha, to force himself to eat. Again, a situation he didn't want to be in. And the Rebbe responded, he simply couldn't. And later, the Rebbe said that perhaps he could eat Malka's soup. So Reb Lazer said, who was Malka? And the Rebbe answered that he is Avremel, the poor water carrier's wife. So immediately, Reb Lazer ran to their house a few blocks away and knocked on the door. Malka answered the door, taken aback that the Rebbe's son was at her door. And he told her the Rebbe was very sick and can't eat, but the only thing that he would eat was her soup. Could he please write down the recipe for him? So she answered, well, there's really no way I can. She began to explain the story of how she once made soup for the Rebbe. Sometime earlier, her husband, Avremel, very much wanted to invite the Rebbe into their home, but he was extremely shy. So he heard, however, that the Rebbe would be passing by their house on a particular day, so he stood outside waiting for the Rebbe to pass. And as the Rebbe passed, still this Avremel was so embarrassed to say anything. But perhaps sensing that Avremel wanted to invite him in, the Rebbe asked if he could visit Avremel in his home. So Avremel was thrilled and brought the Rebbe into his house. They sat down at the table, but Avremel was completely ignorant and was so shy he didn't have anything. He couldn't say anything. He merely sat with the Rebbe at the table. After a few minutes, he ran into the kitchen and asked Malka to prepare some food for their honored guest. But she told him she would try to put something together, but truthfully, the cupboards were bare. They had nothing. They hadn't eaten themselves in 2 days. And all she had was water and salt. So she put the water over the fire, added the salt, and began to stir as her tears fell into the water. Desperate to make something delicious for the Rebbe, she davened over the water, and although they had nothing to flavor the soup, Hashem has all of the delicious tastes in the world above in Gan Eden, and he put it into the soup. Because she knew that Hashem had all those delicious flavors. And Hashem, you could make the soup taste amazing. And this was the soup with her tears that she served the Rebbe Reb Elimelech. That was the story. So Reb Blazer realized this was something one could not reproduce with a recipe. Other soups take away hunger, but Malka's soup gives life. As we stand at Yizkor to remember our lost beloved ones, to realize many of them were Holocaust survivors, descendants of Holocaust survivors. But the fact that we are here today and we're enjoying whatever little bit of paradise we have, it all came from our parents' tears. The tears where they not necessarily could have provided us with everything we wanted, but the tears that they cried to Hashem. Hashem, this is the best I can do. And you can make things taste so amazing. And please make sure that the little we have tastes so amazing. So when we're going to have our own Yizkor later today and at home alone, we ask Hashem, please collect all our tears. We've shed many tears. Many Jewish tears have shed in the last 2 months. And we're making a very special soup. And Hashem, collect our tears and the tears of those that we are remembering. Put them on this amazing soup. And during this time of COVID-19, where we know we don't know anything, and we have fulfilled Nishma, and Hashem, we've tried our best to nasa, all according to all the safety requirements. Hashem, please take our tears and release us from this situation. Bring us back as united people, not to criticize other Jews, but rather to embrace them all. And let this be, as the story of Rus, a critical watershed time in Jewish history, where our tears of Nasa and Nishma will bring the final Nasa v'Nishma b'mheira v'yameinu with Mashiach Tzidkenu. Amen. Thank you all for listening. I don't think